Earlier in November, I was invited by researchers at the University of Bristol to be one of the judges in their Impaired Technologies Game Jam. As part of that, I was asked to give a talk about game development, which I chose to do on playtesting, my experiences of it, and how important it is. Thank you again to Priscilla, Dr. Cole, and everyone else for the experience, and thank you to Scott for recording the talk. If you need a photographer in the Bristol area, I have left his links in the description.
Validating your ideas and what to do when they are all wrong. I'm actually going to start the talk with a bit of a caveat. Certainly not all of the ideas are going to be wrong. It is very hard to do everything wrong because if you're playing it too or you've come up with it, but definitely some of them will be. And that's not your fault. And that's where playtesting comes in. When you're playtesting, your players will be looking at things from a different angle to you because you're seeing everything, they're seeing some of it. They can see things that you didn't spot in your game design. They can see things that you don't want them to spot, right? Sometimes there'll be bugs or little rough corners, but there are often like deadlines. Here in this game jam, you'll have only a few days, and you can't polish everything maybe that you would have wanted to. They can point out where the design's not working, because sometimes you have to make assumptions about what a player will do in a given situation or what they'll try, and sometimes that won't hold up. But then importantly, it can also show you where your design does work. And then you can keep doing more of that, or you can expand the game to be more like that, or you can just feel good that people are enjoying your game. As an example of why playtesting is important, the Half-Life series, when it reached its 20th and 25th anniversary, Valve released these rather long YouTube videos explaining their process of making it. And specifically in the Half-Life one, I would have found quotes, but I don't have time to watch 3 hours of YouTube to get them. So my source will be, trust me, I watched these. But the designers mention they felt a bit like frauds when they started playtesting because they'd just been hired by the, at that time, new studio to work on making their game fun. And when they finally got the playtesters in, it was not fun. The players found it broken. They didn't understand certain things. They found certain parts clunky. But they came to realize that the job of a designer, your job when working on your game, is to not make the game fun at the start, it's to make the final product fun. And so you have to just take on board what they're saying, not take it personally, and work to make your thing better. Most of this talk will be based off my experience playtesting things. There is a game that we made, Grace and I, along with some other people in third year at uni. This was playtested by lecturers. Some of them did not play games at all, so that is a very different experience to maybe you'll get here when you're playtesting your games or in anything else. And one is just this little puzzle game that I'm working on now that I took a while ago to a indie game meetup in Bristol to get playtested. And the tips I'm going to give are not just for games. So if after this game jam you only do either a few other game jams and don't touch anything else, or if you want to work on more games in your own time, or whether you want to do something else, a lot of these ideas are universal. My partner does English, specifically like creative writing and publishing, and they're taught basically the same sort of stuff for reading books. So I'm going to start by giving you an overview of all the tips before going into them in finer detail. And that's because they do overlap a bit. And knowing what to look for or knowing what's coming can help you better contextualize what I'm talking about at the time. So firstly, you should be examining what your players are telling you, which may sound obvious, but the key point of the feedback may not exactly be what they say, or sometimes you need to do a bit of amateur psychology to figure out why it is they're telling you this. Because they're saying something, they're putting their thoughts into words, that makes that thought important. But why and what does it mean for your game? Communicating your context. Depending on what you tell your players beforehand, or depending on what's going on, or the context of the playtest, they might give you different feedback. They might not give you exactly what you want, and you might have been able to get more out of it. And finally, repetition and evaluation. This is the last point, and it's the longest because I really want to stress this. The same people, different people. Same builds of the game, different builds. Builds that you aren't planning to release, builds where you just change a few things. Earlier than you think, even earlier than you think when I tell you to do it earlier. You want to do it early and often. Not after every single change, because that can get annoying, but as often as you can, because you will learn something. And you shouldn't be afraid to make massive changes to your game based off what the players have told you. Don't be afraid to change things up, even if it's just for one playtest. So firstly, examining what the players say. Here are some quotes from the lecturers when we were making this game. And the first point on this is, in my experience, people, when they tell you problems with your game, might actually give you the solution instead of the problem. So there should be a little person on your ship to tell you where the other ships are. Well, it was a hint that we got, which on the surface, maybe, but maybe that's not what we're after. But the actual problem, and this one might be like obvious based on the feedback, although you don't know what this screenshot is maybe. They don't know where the other players are. That's the problem. That's what you need to solve. That's the issue they're having. That's how they'll make the game better. The game will not necessarily be made better by animating a little person who'll pop up on your ship and give you that information. But now that we know that's a problem, we can start fixing it. The next piece of feedback, your players don't know what it is necessarily you're trying to do. So here, for example, where you're engineering it around like disabilities or impairments, a random player coming along and playing it, or coming across it on Steam or itch, might not immediately be aware that that's what you're doing. And you don't have a bird's eye view of the playing experience. So it could be that you're going, oh, this will be really fun for people who are, say, blind. It's an audio-only game. But maybe they play it and they go, oh, like I get it, but it's not working. And you can't know that for sure. The players aren't game designers, but they are players, right? They will not care how smart you think the design is. Like in this quote where they're telling us it's a bit too complicated. They just want it to be fun. And they'll know if it's fun because they're the ones playing it. This one's important, and there's a quote that's good for it on the next slide. But all feedback has value. Even if you think it's like a throwaway line, even if it's the type of feedback that maybe afterwards you'll go to your friends and go, oh, what was that guy talking about? Like, it is important. There is something to learn from it, even if it's the absence of other feedback. And here is that quote that I got, are the graphics final? Now, for me, the red stick figure, no, quite clearly. They also then asked, like, will there be sound? And rather tentatively asked me, do you plan on releasing this? And that hurt. And it's easy to make fun of it, but partially that's my fault for not communicating my context, which was the art is not done. I'd mainly focused on the game. The art was not done. The art would be fixed. The value in this feedback is I knew art would be important, but since they did not tell me anything about the game and questioned whether it should be released at all, the art would be very important. But that shows another thing. I don't know if any of you here, if this is like your first game jam, if you've made some games before, but the people playing the games might not know the process. It might be a black box to them. They might not know, for example, oh, before getting things playing out, you don't have everything done. They might not know, like, sometimes you don't do the final draft the first time. Sometimes, like, the UI will be different. Sometimes you're just doing a placeholder. And so it's important to communicate this to your players, like, this is a work in progress. This is what I've worked on. This is what I want you to judge on. What is important, though, don't take this process to front load all of the flaws with your game. Don't tell them, oh, there's a bug if you do this, and this part's not great, and this puzzle, this one's really bad, and I'm going to change it later. The point of a playtest is for people to tell you what they think of your game, not for you to tell them what is bad with your game. It might color what they think about it. They might go in with a negative idea already. They might focus on what you've told them and not on other problems that maybe you need to hear. And also, it might make the environment just like a little bit hostile. If you sit down and you're about to have to give critical feedback to someone and they start by going, OK, look, it's bad, but it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know, that's not comfortable. And you want your players to be comfortable. It is normal to be worried about hurting someone's feelings. I'm certain there's no one in here that would go up and just give an insult to someone because you'd feel bad. That's bad. And with a playtest or any sort of testing, this is something that someone has put a lot of work into and is probably passionate about. You don't want them to be worried that they're going to hurt your feelings because you need them to be critical. That is the point of this whole exercise. And so when they start giving you criticism, if they seem like cautious about it, like, oh, this part's good, but maybe you should lean into that. You should go, no, this is good. Like, please tell me. I can't know that. Like, it'll make it better. Make sure that no matter what they think, they feel comfortable telling you that, because that's how you get the most out of this. And lastly, this point's somewhat detached from the others. They can't judge your game off what's not there. Humans are notoriously bad at being able to correctly give answers to the question, how would you feel if? So I believe it was maybe this exact playtest where we just reworked a bunch of stuff and the game was mostly unplayable. And we asked the lecturers, oh, how is it? Is it better? Oh, if we did this, how would you feel? And their feedback was, we don't know. Why are we here? When you're going to playtest, it is important that what the players playtest is at least evocative of its final form. If you just give them like Unity, Playground, Walkabout with a cube, how would you feel if this was a whole game? You're not going to get anything out of this. Last one, evaluation and repetition. Again, I left it to the end because I really do believe this is the most important one. The best way to make good content is to repeatedly have people external to the process of making the game testing it. So while everyone will definitely be busy here in the game jam because you're on a time limit, if you can occasionally have people trade across to teams to just take a look at what you're doing, have someone with no context look at what it is you're doing, that's how you'll be able to make it quicker, make it better quicker. I actually had this just yesterday. I had a friend play the puzzle game I made, and there's a part that's been very play-tested, and there's the part that's new, and you could immediately tell when you got to the new part because there were some bugs. There was them not quite knowing what to do. Like, it was very noticeable what has been polished and looked at and what hasn't. And you can also notice things that you've added that are bad. For example, when the graphics were improved, people told me, yes, the graphics have been improved, but immediately pointed out it is not clear if that's a barrier, that these 8 pixels are a barrier. Or, hello, I am red colorblind. This entire thing is a brown mess. I can't tell what I'm looking at. It's important to look around that. Do not fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. I am going to need to redo all of that art. It took a bit of time. I am not good at it, but that is important. The final player judges only the end results you have. I believe in the airship one I've been showing, a week before the final hand-in, I had to turn to one of the organizers, Grace, over there, and go, hello, we need to redo all of the textures because it is not working. And I don't believe anyone was very happy about that, but it was the correct decision in the end. You threw away several hours of work. You had to redo it. But at the end of the day, the players don't care if you spent several hours on something that's not very good. They want something fun. And using a mixture of old and new players helps you get coverage on this. Because old players that are returning can tell you, oh, here's how you've improved since then, or that's not quite what I was going for. That's not what I meant in my previous feedback. But new players can catch new things. They can tell you things that either the old players missed or were willing to accept that the new players didn't. Or maybe they'll be able to look at a problem that you think you have and go, oh, actually, I really like this. This is really good. And then you need to start making some more tough decisions about, well, which one do I listen to? And the answer is, do more playtesting, and you'll figure it out that way. And you should try and do as broad a range of players playtesting your game as possible. People who have played games before, people who haven't. People who know the genre you're working on, people who don't. As I mentioned before, my friend who is colorblind, I've had him play it a few times, and I would design a feature specifically around colorblindness. So it doesn't matter if you can't tell the different colors. There's different stuff on it so you can tell. And I was really proud of that, and he was happy with it. And then immediately in the next room went into a puzzle that was basically revolved around, can you tell if something was blue or red? And I clearly had not caught that, but having someone with a different experience was able to catch that. Thank you for listening to my ramble. Necessary credits, I did not make the template myself. And does anyone have any questions?